Right, so here, this is the application as we know it. So basically, in Azure, how Azure production looking application, right? This is how it starts. So it basically starts with your, not here, starts out with your subscription, right? So for your Azure account, you have an Azure subscription, right? Then in that, I believe it's all the different Active Directories here, even though it's not obvious, right? That name me my resource groups, right? But it's really inside your Active Directory, which is known as this, right? As we had it, right? So we get our users added through coming from employee Active Directory, right? So some of our applications can be added here, right? Such as right service principal for deployments, right? As well as GitHub Enterprise and Twilio SendGrid for integrations, right? And then also believe app registrations go there. I see, and then also the marketplace. Take some items. I believe we get those from the marketplace, right? So Twilio, SendGrid, GitHub, right? We're able to retrieve those from the marketplace. I don't really know where we get the list, right? Not sure if we already have, but we'll learn about that another day. Right? So now your applications, right? So your whole application lives in a resource group, right? And these are where all your services are, right? So even though this is Angular front end, right? This your apps, this is a back end, and it learns in an app service plan, right? And this is where your back end is, right? App service plan is not really important, but important things about your back end is your config, what is your deployment center. Let's see if I got disconnected. Not yet. I'm probably going to get removed, right? So here we have Azure Container Registry, right? That's the information here. That's my backend image, right? And then I believe configuration, right? These are where my environment variables are, right? As you can see, things like Docker, right? Come here, the Microsoft provider, that's ours, but there's all of theirs, right? These are all configuration settings, environment variables, basically what we have, right, to get around. So now, all the other thing now, right, so there's so you can SSH into the application, and then you could also refer to logstream just to understand, right? Logstream's not the prettiest, but that's where it is. Right, so next we have our front end. This is where our front end application is. We use SWA. Um, right, so SWA. Oops. Right, we use SWA to deploy our applications to the front end, right? So not too much configuration, but there's definitely steps in how to provide for your own domain. This domain came from GoDaddy, right? And then really that's really it. I'm not seeing too much going on in here, right? So then here's container registry. That's where our Docker image lives, right? You have to stand up the new container registry if you want your applications to run through Docker. Not too much going on here, but there's the repositories, right? So that's, and then all the versions of your Docker image up there. That's a flashback and we're using to host the application, right? So here, right, is a database, right? So basically, oh wait, no. So is our SQL server, right? So this is known as a database server, and Here in here lies SQL databases, right? We have a general purpose database. I'm not too sure if there was configure. So there's a lot of configuration going on in here, but this is the database that we had as well. Very, very simple to stand up. You just get the, and then also one thing with when it comes to SQL Server databases that you have to open up the connection. So I believe there's a firewall in here. Maybe it's in networking, but you also want to just make sure that people have access, right? So access, and I think there's also by domain. It's not immediately obvious how that works, but also by domain, people should be able to have access to the application. Not too sure where that may be, but we could definitely find it again with that. Right? And then I believe, yes, I definitely covered that. And then if you actually look into this application to see further, right, for user account managed, so email communication service, right, we're using Azure Communications email communication service to allow us to. But we should also been able to do that through the Graph API. Yeah, we had to set that up in order to get that to work, but we had some issues because there's something wrong with the account subscription, right? So here's our B2C tenant, right? So this is Azure AD B2C. This is like account management. This is where user accounts are made, right? And then for that, what we have to do is you have to go to a different directory to try to see what's going on there. All right. So here's where our B2C directory lives in this Azure AD. So this is known as the customer active directory, if you could see, right? So we have an app. So you need an app registration, right? So in order to interact with the application, right? Then you have your users, as you can see here, right? And then this was created from user flows, right? And then, right, these are all different user flows, right? So someone wants to sign up, sign in, they use that user flow. Profile edit, they use that user flow, and password reset, they go ahead and use that user flow, right? So, and then there's also additional configuration that you may have to do, right, in the app registration, right? So these are where this is how it works. So basically, your secret to use the app. So they call it the app registration. That's basically an application that's a middleware between Azure API and your application. Probably just for credentials, help with credentials, right? And then API permissions, they're here. You go ahead and set them as needed. Usually with B2C, you can't use delegates, but there's definitely other resources in the code. In the code, that should be your sample application now, right, on how to go about this. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and look around. Let's go back to project Active Directory. All right, so Azure Managed Domain, this comes from the email communication service, right? And other than that, that's it, right? So that's basically a production application.